Very good evening and welcome to Network. My name is Spumelele Zondi. Congratulations to Miss South Africa, Rolene Strauss, who was crowned Miss World just over 30 minutes ago. In this week's program, South Africa's mobile network operators are pledging a lot to the fight against Ebola. We have info on that. Tonight, we'll also find out a bit about compressed natural gas, which is an alternative form of car fuel that has arrived in South Africa. During our discussion, we'll chat about astronomers who are crowdsourcing to raise cash. We'll also talk about sexism in the gaming industry. We are live. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter. It's newsnetwork@sabc.co.za on email. The fuel price in South Africa has gone up more than it's gone down in the last couple of years. It's no surprise that some are now providing technologies that offer alternative methods to juice up the car. Compressed natural gas is one such method. It already has 2 gas stations in Johannesburg. This gas station in Langlaagte, south of Johannesburg, is one of 2 here. Those filling up aren't pouring petrol or diesel, but have converted their cars to run with compressed natural gas or CNG. CNG is methane stored at high pressure and it is biogas.
It's generally organic matter that's broken down. You get various sources of natural gas. You can get landfill from waste products.
So far, CNG Holdings' main business is coming from the taxi industry, with just under 500 taxis that have converted from petrol.
There are 285,000 taxis running in South Africa. So for the benefit of South Africa, there will be a carbon reduction.
The technology is using an already existing pipe to bring in the gas from Mozambique. Converting the technology in your car and installing a tank like this one would cost the taxi owner just under 20,000 rand. Private car owners would be looking at under 15,000 rand. But once converted, one would save on fuel.
We did tests and we showed that we could get savings of between 30 and 40%, even now with the oil price going low.
The downside is that there are still only 2 in South Africa, this one in Langlaagte and another in Dobsonville, Soweto. CNG Holdings says there is a planned expansion which includes Pretoria and KwaZulu-Natal. Google, the world's biggest search engine, has announced that it will block its news search page in Spain. The move comes after a new law that expects websites to pay for reposting headlines from other news organizations. The company's news search page links users with publications that have articles published on news sites.
As from Tuesday, 16 December, Google News sites will shut down its service in Spain. In a statement, Google says Spain's new law will make its news search service unsustainable. As a result of this, the search giant has decided to remove Spanish publishers from its service internationally.
Google News is a free-of-cost product without advertisements for which we obtain no revenue. Therefore, it will not be beneficial for the company if we had to pay for this content.
In the past, news publishers have blamed the search giant for revenue and readership declines. The company says it doesn't contribute to readership declines, but in fact sends millions of clicks that allow news sites to make money via online advertising. Google says this and other moves to limit its operations affect people's right to freedom of information.
We believe that the internet is based on the right to freedom of information and the right for users to be able to share that information. So the more users have access to information, the better. In this case, with the closure of Google News, there will be fewer users who access information. Therefore, freedom of press may be in some way restricted.
Google says it had to stop the service in Spain because the new law would expect the internet giant to pay.
The Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services says it's now going to use ICT solutions in the fight against women and children abuse. This was announced by the department's Deputy Minister, Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize. Producer Lebusi Jake went to an event where this was announced.
16 days of activism of no violence against women and children abuse have just ended. The Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services decided to go on a roadshow to tell the women and kids of Empuleni municipality in the Vaal about ways they can use modern technologies to assist them. Deputy Minister Professor Hlengwe Mkhize mentioned mobile applications that can improve communications between police and the public.
We also use different technologies, like even mobiles. I can use it to save some information. I can use the computer, I can create an e-cloud, but also a platform, an app for the municipality, government, everybody to communicate and say this is what is happening.
Government officials also mentioned that the focus should also be on assisting those that aren't tech savvy.
Our program will roll on from early next year, of which amongst other things to educate and make awareness to our children and women. And amongst others is to make sure that they get that education of texting, and the relationship is more important between the community and the police. So we'll be running with that program for 365 days.
As the 16 days of no violence against women and children abuse have ended, the hope is that the technology platforms, like the one spoken about here, could be used throughout the year.
Ebola has ravaged parts of West Africa, and the African Union has asked the private sector to help in this fight. It's because of this that South Africa's biggest mobile operators, MTN and Vodacom, are also doing their bit. In social media, the fight has become known as #FightAgainstEbola. This platform is used to provide facts about the disease. Nomadiko has the story for us.
Recently, Her Excellency Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma made a call to all Africans to lead the global efforts of solidarity with the people of Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea in their fight against Ebola. As a result of this, MTN, which is by far Africa's largest mobile phone operator with presence in more than 16 African countries, has decided to help.
As you'd be aware, MTN operates in 16 African countries. And in 4 of those 16, which are in West Africa, we felt that we have a responsibility as MTN to support those communities which we service, particularly as they face this difficult period, as they try and fight this terrible disease. And that's why we got into this initiative with the African Union.
For this, MTN teamed up with their South African rival, Vodacom, which also has a presence in many African countries.
We thought this was a fantastic opportunity as a mobile operator to use our technology for the benefit of all. And so we specifically said, let's come forward and put our technology to use and work in collaboration with other operators. And this is happening in all the markets in which we operate.
In South Africa, the public can contribute to this cause by simply dialing 40797 on their MTN or Vodacom mobile device to donate at least 10 rands. Contributions can also be made online at africaagainstebola.org. The proceeds will help with the needs of the 3 affected countries.
Remember when you were younger, Michael Knight from the Knight Rider could talk to his car through a watch? Well, that might be a reality soon. With the rising technological innovations, smart wearables might get even smarter. But are they receiving a proper reception, or are they just filling an empty space?
Watches, e-textiles, sunglasses and headphones have all gotten smarter. They can monitor your heart rate, count your steps and even notify you when you have a phone call. But where did it all start? The calculator watch, first released in 1975, became a widely popular tool for science geeks and math nerds everywhere. These early smartwatches had their heyday through the mid-1980s. And although the popularity went downhill, many companies still produce calculator watches to this day. Fast forward to 2014, we have a wide variety of smart products that hit the market. George Kalibaila, a senior research manager at IDC, says wearable technology will grow further.
The technology, of course, is going to develop, especially that now, Apple has also entered the market with the iWatch. As we see, Apple is quite very innovative. But, already we are in the 3rd generation of some of this, smartwatches.
He also says that the different devices are sold to specific markets. But most of the time, the devices are not used to their full potential.
The interesting part is that if you look at the applications and the way they're really painted or marketed by, the device manufacturers, most of the use cases that people have reported using these devices for have been really, like 10% of the capabilities of the devices.
With the market flooding with these devices, are people accepting them?
It is safe, especially for drivers. to keep them cautious on the roads.
It is nowadays everything you can do anything to make money. But according to my belief, this thing are not working.
Maybe one day wearable devices will be communicating with cars, but for now they are still finding their feet in the market.
Stay with us. After the break, we'll find out about astronomers that are crowdsourcing to raise funds. It's SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter. Don't go away.
Because of cancer, I realized life is short. I want to live my dream.
They can bend my face, but not my voice.
I'm definitely not a cross-dresser. South Africa, I'm just a gay man.
Join Puleng Molebatsi on Bupilong every Saturday at 17:30 CAT.
Now, it was in 1969 when the first humans touched down on the moon. We've all seen the famous video of Neil Armstrong planting the American flag on the surface of the moon. Unfortunately, no African country has achieved the same feat in the 45 years since then. Now, a Pan-African initiative is aiming to change all of that. And it's calling on you, the online public, to help send African astronauts to the moon.
Online users are being asked to use the internet to help fund Africa's first venture to the moon. The crowdfunding initiative is the brainchild of the Foundation for Space Development in Cape Town.
Our funding comes from private institutions and private individuals. And when attempting something as large as this, it is imperative that we've got the public behind us. And the best way to gauge and measure public opinion and public support is to open it up to the public for funding as well.
The crowdfunding initiative was launched in November to raise close to 2 million rands. The money will help finance the first phase of the lunar mission dubbed Africa to Moon. The project aims to send a robotic craft to the moon where it can stream live images back to Earth and into classrooms across the continent. This is in the hope of raising awareness and curiosity about space to African youth.
Africa is a continent with 52 countries, no less. And of those countries, none have had a lunar footprint, none have launch capacity, less than 5 have literal presence in space. Indeed, very few by way of basically have space programs.
The first phase of the Africa to Moon will involve a mission concept and feasibility study, expected to run between January and November 2015.
Now, Jonathan Welshman, whom you just saw on that insight, is joining us to have a discussion about this. Hello and welcome to Network, Jonathan.
Good evening, Siphumelele. Thank you for having me.
Now, Jonathan, it's quite shocking that there's been no such mission since 1969. Why is this?
Well, I think it's for 2 reasons. One is Africa's capability. It's taken us quite a bit of time to be able to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of space technologies and space capabilities. And the second reason is about imperatives. I think that our space programs at the moment, quite rightly so, are focused at immediate applications in terms of communication and health and disaster management, as opposed to research and exploration, which is very much what going to the moon is about.
It's 1.8 million rand that you're trying to raise, right?
It's 1.8 million rand to do what we call a pre-phase A study, which is a feasibility study that will determine the specifics of the mission, what exact experiments we want to do, what is the various payloads and the sizes of the vehicles we're going to carry. So it's very much a very early part of a planning cycle, but that's why the cost is so comparatively low. I think that over a 10-year period, we would be looking at somewhere closer to the region of almost 10 billion rand.
And are you confident that you're going to reach this target?
I'm confident that we're going to be able to complete the pre-phase A study. The crowdfunding is very important to us in terms of how wide we can reach and how pan-African we can go in terms of involving public participation in this. But we will complete the phase A study. We will be able to deliver a feasibility plan for this mission by the end of 2015.
At the moment, how is the continent of Africa funding space research?
Right now, we are fairly active in Northern Africa, with Algeria, Morocco, and Egypt all having space programs. They're government funded and what we call traditional space. And I think in South Africa, in Africa, it is almost all traditional space, which is all government funded. And the African Union itself is bringing out an African space policy to try and unite efforts in those terms. Research itself, I think, needs to be funded by the users, be that universities or commerce. And we're seeing a trend across the globe to what we call commercial space or new space. And new programs and new missions will be funded from the private sector.
All right, tell us a bit about that, commercial space, new space.
Well, SpaceX is a perfect example of a new space company. When NASA decided to end the space shuttle program, they needed a commercial partner in order to continue to provide logistics and service modules to the International Space Station, and eventually to provide astronauts. And that was really the birth of commercial space. Right now we have Orbital and SpaceX who are delivering cargo to the International Space Station under contract with NASA. And Boeing and SpaceX have just been awarded the contracts to carry astronauts to the International Space Station.
All right.
And what that does is it leaves NASA free to focus on its deep space.
Yeah, Jonathan Weltzman, thank you very much for being a part. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you. Don't go away. After the break, we'll chat about sexism in the gaming industry. Don't go away.
Ja, ik heb een paar bezig. Kom.
SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter, welcome back. Now, over 40,000 people in Australia have signed a petition calling on retail giant Target to not sell the blockbuster video game Grand Theft Auto 5. Target had, at the beginning of December, bowed to the pressure and pulled the game from its shelves. The retailer says it was concerned the game encouraged violence against women. Gaming in general is thought to be sexist. To discuss the extent of women abuse in the gaming world, we're joined by Alessandro Barbosa. He's a writer with lazygamer.net and joins us here in the studio. Hello and welcome, Alessandro.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Alessandro, can you tell us about the extent of sexism in the gaming industry?
Sexism isn't something that's, just defined in gaming. Sexism is a big problem worldwide in terms of movies, comic books, everything like that. But in terms of gaming, you're looking at two facets of sexism. You're looking at harassment online against female gamers, as well as gender representation in games themselves. It's not as equal as people think it should be.
All right, let's start on the first point that you mentioned, harassment online.
Yeah.
How does this manifest itself?
You see, now harassment online in gaming is just a general thing. You're harassed online for being bad at a game. You're harassed regardless if you're winning, losing. But if you're a female gamer, it's kind of aimed towards you because you're a female gamer. Females who play online, I think, get a lot more grief purely because they are female and they are, presumed to be worse at games. Gaming is predominantly thought of as a male hobby, and because of that, you get this nastiness online that really shouldn't be there just because you're a female who enjoys gaming.
As a man, what sort of privileges do you have in the gaming environment?
Well, again, it stems to not being harassed purely because of your gender. You'll never be told you're bad at a game because you are male. You'll never be asked to provide intimate details about your sexuality because you're male. You'll get harassed online because you're bad at a game and because online anonymity is a toxic wasteland. But not because you're male, and that's where the big divide comes in. Gaming online as a female, you're targeted purely because you're a female.
But it becomes worse than just people trolling online.
Yeah, I mean, you get instances of violence. People threaten you online with violence, and as a female, you can imagine how that's directed. Also, recently, Anita Sarkeesian, she's a big spokesperson for gender representation in gaming and feminism in gaming. She was threatened, with death threats online over Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, and even bomb threats at a university that she was set to give a talk at. So, it's really nasty, and again, it all boils down to being anonymous online, not having a face to the words that you say, and people just going absolutely crazy.
Let's talk about the characters, female characters that you find online. How different are they from male characters?
Well, it's a big thing in gaming, especially with the way characters are dressed. Female characters in games are often overly sexualized because gaming is still geared towards a male market. It's still marketed as a male hobby. And that stems from, a time where gaming needed to choose a side to survive. The gaming industry was on the verge of collapse, and it needed to choose, are we going to market to males or females? And males just ended up being them. So, it's still predominantly seen as a male hobby, and for that reason, female characters are overly sexualized. They're seen as subservient almost in some cases of games. There are some cases where female representation is really good, and it's getting better, and that's what the industry as a whole is trying to strive towards, is better and more equal representation.
Are there any successful interventions?
Interventions, I wouldn't really go as far to say that, but I mean, there are examples of games like Mirror's Edge, which features a female protagonist. Games like Thomas Was Alone, which completely disembodies sexuality completely. So it's getting there, and there are prominent female developers out there, there are prominent female writers out there that are striving to make these games more accessible to females and make it feel like it's a hobby for everyone.
All right. Alessandro Barbosa from lasergamer.net, thank you very much for joining us and being a part of our network tonight.
No problem, thank you.
Now, China opened the world's first restaurant to use robots as waiters. It's what the future might look like. We leave you with a video of those waiters at work. That's all we have for you tonight. So find us on SABC Network on Facebook and Twitter. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. From Ms. Pumela Lezondi and the rest of the network team, have a good one.